live with yourself knowing what I'm gonna make you do.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, it's Young here and welcome to an Evil Within trailer analysis. Recently Bethesda Softworks released a brand new trailer for the highly anticipated horror game, so I've decided to analyze it and reveal my findings to you. It's important to keep in mind that because this is a brand new franchise, it's hard to connect all the dots since there is no previous Evil Within game to work with. Anyways, check out the trailer first, which I'll follow up with my analysis.
All units, 1199 Beacon Mental Hospital.
There's something wrong with this place. God damn it! Doctor? Am I going crazy? Will you be able to live with yourself knowing what I'm gonna make you do?
The trailer begins the same way the game opens, with Detective Sebastian and his partners Joseph Oda and Julie Kidman being called in to investigate Beacon Mental Hospital. There they find nothing short of a massacre, with the corpses of patients, staff members, and previously dispatched officers sprawled across the entire facility. We are then shown one of the game's key features, instantaneous environmental shifts, and a world that warps around Sebastian. Why Sebastian is constantly transported throughout various environments or why the world warps around him is unknown, and it's one of the many mysteries of the Evil Within. My guess is that it's a combination of the supernatural and Sebastian's degrading psyche. In the back here, we can see an ambulance truck from Beacon Mental Hospital. Again, with so little background story to work with, it's hard to say how Sebastian ended up in these circumstances. Here is yet another one of the game's various locales. The forest is likely just outside the village, which Sebastian eventually stumbles upon. Further inside the village lies a mansion. This mansion has actually been shown in some of the game's concept arts, and it's likely where the family in this portrait used to live until some kind of tragedy occurred. Inside the mansion lies an individual whose face merely reflects that of Sebastian's. Perhaps the individual is Sebastian himself, with the stranger's degraded physicality symbolizing Sebastian's current state of mind. Then things get a bit crazy as the world around Sebastian warps into an eerily beautiful scene. With how little context we get, it's hard to say whose house this is. But perhaps this has something to do with Sebastian's past and some kind of traumatic experience. Maybe this is his childhood home. Now here's something interesting. In this scene, we get to witness one of Sebastian's partners, Joseph Oda, getting prepped for execution. It's weird though, how did Joseph Oda become part of Sebastian's twisted world? Is this a figment of Sebastian's imagination, or is this actually happening? Just what the hell is going on? Here is yet another bizarre scene showcasing the twisted world that Sebastian finds himself in. This particular scene is actually one that has been showcased to journalists a few months back. From what I read in IGN's First Look article, this scene happens after players make their way through a cottage full of the zombie-like creatures, and this cottage is likely inside the village. And after a while inside the cottage, the scene suddenly shifts to this corridor in which a wave of blood envelops the protagonist. When Sebastian comes to, he ends up back in the asylum. The trailer then shows off one of the game's trademark features, traps. These will not only be placed throughout the world for players, but players will also be using traps to fend off foes. Speaking of foes, the trailer shows off new enemies that players will be facing. First, we have this masked man who gives off a very serial killer vibe. The mannequins have actually been shown already through some screenshots, but this is the first time we get to see who I'm assuming to be the mastermind behind this creepy environment. Then, for something more dramatic, we are shown a mysterious spectral creature with a body that's split open and a face that is indiscernible. Like with all other creatures and abominations found in the game, its origin remains unknown. Next, we are shown a short sequence in which we see one of the zombie-like creatures executing who I'm assuming to be one of the villagers. Looks like Sebastian and his partners aren't the only normal and living humans that are living through this nightmare. I can't foresee running into many of them, and most will probably meet a quick demise, but hopefully we'll encounter other new characters who are facing the same nightmare as Sebastian to mix things up a bit. In the next shot, we are shown the Butcher, a formidable foe that players will encounter early on in the game. We also get a good look at Boxhead, yet another one of the game's many mysterious creatures. Right after, we get a clear shot of a family portrait inside what I'm assuming to be the mansion. It's peculiar that the faces of the two children have been removed. The face of the child on the left has had its canvas completely torn off, while the face of the one on the right seems blacked out and painted over. I have a feeling that these children are two of the twisted creatures players will encounter throughout the game. Take the young girl on the right, for example. Doesn't she resemble Reborn Lara? I'm pretty confident that the creature and the girl are one and the same. And I don't know about you, but when a child's face is torn off from a painting's canvas and bugs start crawling out of it, that's usually a pretty ominous sign. Regardless, it's quite clear that this family is a huge part of the game's story and mystery. Then we get to meet yet another one of Evil Within's creatures, who Sebastian simply calls Doctor. I say creature because, well, he doesn't really look all that sane. Although who knows, he may be an insane doctor who will help the player. Also interesting to note during this scene is that we get to witness yet another normal living person living through this nightmare, likely a doctor from Beacon Mental Hospital. The next shot goes by really fast, but if we pause it, you may notice something metal embedded into Sebastian's right hand. There are two possible explanations for this. Either this is some kind of mechanism that was implanted into Sebastian's right hand to restrict his abilities in some way, or it's just a glitch, possibly handcuffs going through his right hand. I'm going to place my bet on the latter since there is no blood where the metal mechanism meets the skin. And I've seen enough collision engine glitches to know when I see one. Also, the object no longer seems to be there in the next shot, although it's too blurry to tell. We are then shown yet another one of Sebastian's bizarre and nightmarish experiences, followed by a creature that somewhat resembles Reborn Lara. You can see that the creature has 4 arms and a pair of boobs, but there is something different about the head. It looks like it's wearing some sort of helmet, and unlike Reborn Lara, there is not a single strand of hair to be found. This creature is either one of many forms that Reborn Lara can take, or it's just another creature altogether who perhaps had similar experiments performed upon. And then there's this. Again, with so little context, it's hard to tell what's happening or why. The shot that follows shows a clear view of a man named Ruvik, who we got a glimpse of in the Tokyo Game Show trailer of The Evil Within. It's hard to say whether the man is a living human or a living dead, and it's unknown where his powers came from. All we really know is that one of the doctors players meet early on in the game recognizes Ruvik as if he were a ghost from the past.
Hey, are you injured? What happened here?
It was Ruvik. It was him. It couldn't be. I can't believe it.
Next, we get a quick shot of Reborn Lara, and if you pause at the right time, you can actually get a clear shot of her face. To me, she looks like a grown-up version of the child in the portrait, but who knows? And again, if we compare her to the water creature from a previous shot, you can see there are clear similarities and clear differences. If I had to guess, I would say the two creatures are different. After all, Reborn Lara has longer nails, a discernible face, tons of hair, and her skin tone and texture seem, for lack of better words, more human than the water creatures. Next, I want to focus on this very quick shot showing an exploding building, which reminded me of this particular concept art of the game. I'm not sure how the game goes from horror inside the asylum to the end of the world, and it's hard to say whether these events actually happened or are all in Sebastian's mind, but it's yet another mystery that players can look forward to solving when they get their hands on the game. The next few shots show brief images of things like Boxhead, the zombies, Reborn Lara, and more, but it also briefly shows off this scene of Julie Kidman, who is trapped in a magician's box of sorts, which is being filled with piss-colored water. Like Joseph Oda, she too will partake in Sebastian's twisted and nightmarish world, but how those two got involved remains to be seen. All we really know is that Sebastian, Joseph, and Kid all showed up at the crime scene at Beacon Mental Hospital, and that somehow led them to their circumstances. The last image in that burst of shots shows off a rather gruesome and disturbing scene. This individual is clearly not a living dead, but rather a regular human, although I have a feeling that this could be part of the zombification process. If you take a look at the game's various footage and screenshots, you can see that some of the zombie-like creatures have barbed wire wrapped around them in a similar fashion to this human. Now, that doesn't mean the barbed wire has anything to do with the zombification, it's likely just a method of restraint. The direct cause of the zombification is still unknown, although I'm placing my bet on some kind of virus, chemical, or experiment. Finally, we are shown various shots involving Ruvik and Sebastian. Ruvik almost seems like the Evil Within's Albert Wesker. Like Wesker, he's been afflicted with something that has granted him incredible powers at the cost of his humanity, and the fact that he had to dodge the bullet tells me that Ruvik is not some kind of ghost, but rather conscious and living flesh.
Will you be able to live with yourself knowing what I'm gonna make you do?
Something else to note is that a section of his head has been replaced with an artificial transparent skull, indicating that the man has been heavily experimented upon. An interesting theory I've heard is that he could be the child on the left in the portrait, who perhaps like Laura, has been experimented upon and turned into an abomination. To me, the man gives off a sort of Frankenstein's monster vibe. I theorize that Ruvik was actually dead for a long time at some point, since his skin looks quite decomposed both in tone and texture, but his brain was somehow preserved and experiments on his corpse eventually revived him, which granted him supernatural powers in the process, and from what I can see, unfortunately for those in charge of the experiment, the subject went rogue or has somehow returned to exact revenge.
Will you be able to live with yourself knowing what I'm gonna make you do?
Ruvik's final words before the end of the trailer are, "Will you be able to live with yourself, knowing what I'm gonna make you do?" Interesting words that are hard to decrypt since, again, there is so little context for what's happening. And with that, the trailer ends, but there is still one more thing to analyze. You may notice that there is a whispering voice repeating something over and over again. It could just be me, but I'm hearing the words, "Is he alive?" over and over again, perhaps referring to Ruvik, a ghost from the past. But this is just my interpretation, and it's possible that I'm mishearing the spoken words. Be sure to let our nation know in the comments below your thoughts on what the voice is saying and your interpretation of the words. One general note I would like to make before concluding this video is that I'm a bit disappointed with the graphics. I really hope we're just looking at the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 versions of the game, because from what I saw in this trailer, textures are blurry and models are a bit rough on the edges. Having played games like Metal Gear Solid 5 Ground Zeroes and infamous Second Son recently, which are both gorgeous games, it's hard to look at the graphics in this trailer without noticing its flaws, but I'll reserve judgment until the game is finalized. And with that, I would like to conclude this trailer analysis, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in. Be sure to let our nation know in the comments below if there is anything I missed, and if there is anything you would like to add or correct. And to be further updated on the evil within, be sure to join the nation and subscribe to Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Thank you very much, and Young out.